Welcome back. I have now two new guests with me to talk about exchange and the Landsraad. One of them is Joel Bylos, first time on this stream, never seen before. We did let him out of the doghouse again. So for those of you who wondered, Joel, creative director on Dune Awakening. You want to introduce yourself quickly?
Sure.
For those of you who don't know him.
This week my name is Al Gaib.
Okay, there you go.
And I'm the creative director on Dune Awakening, and I've had to change sponsor due to something that happened during the last podcast. Sorry, live stream. So I've switched sponsors now.
All right, so we just balance it out between Coke and Pepsi, all good. Mm-hmm. And then we have a first timer on the stream, Amar Zouari. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
Senior designer, Funcom. You want to introduce yourself quickly?
Yes, I'm Amar, senior designer on Dune Awakening. I mostly work with systems such as the Landsraad, what we call hazards, such as quicksand, drum sand, and sandworm.
Sandworm, master of the worm.
Sandworm. What was you like the godfather of sandworms? No, what was it? The worm father. The worm father. Yes, the worm father. There we go. So if you make the acquaintance of one of our worms, you can blame Amar. Well, the whole team really working under him, but he had a big say in it. So yeah, obviously we do have social mechanics in the game, and there is a way for players to kind of influence economy, politics, a lot of those things. And one of the social aspects that we kind of modeled a little bit after traditional MMOs is the exchange, which is basically our auction house. Joel, you want to go a little bit more into what that actually looks like?
Sure, I mean, you can probably see it on the screen right now, hopefully.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, this is one of the reasons why we think Dune pushes a little bit beyond your average survival game, because we have this worldwide, and when I say world, I'm talking about our definition of world, which is battle groups in other games. It's kind of a definition where we have a bunch of these sietches, which are the servers, and they all connect to a single world, and within that world there's a single exchange, which means people are able to sell and buy things off the exchange across these spaces, which means that you can, obviously it's standard thing, people have seen it in MMOs for a long time, but the cool thing about our game is we have these dynamic elements that can be bought and sold on the exchange, and we really tried to bring to focus some of the things from from the advantages that this type of game has. For example, freeform building. So you'll be able to craft the buildings, as you saw earlier, save them to the replicator that we showed, I think, in the earlier part of the live stream. And then you'll be able to go to an exchange, preview someone else's building sets, and then purchase them, bring them home, and then place out your own buildings. And obviously fill them in. So kind of the idea here is that we have this dynamic content. It means that people who play this role of architects, which is something that we've seen as I think a new kind of play style that comes out of these kind of games, these survival, open world crafting games. People who are architects are actually able to make a living, hopefully, by selling really cool designs on the exchange to other players. And of course we'll have people who make beautiful artistic things like the scorpion we saw that was really cool and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we'll also have people who are like sweaty PvP raiders who are really like making their honeycomb boxes to put out in the deep desert. So hopefully, this creates some sort of economy around this, and that's kind of one of the coolest things about our exchange.
Yeah. I also think it's really cool because, again, if you don't like to build, you can just go there and get something really cool if you wanted to. Maybe you want something, but you don't want to spend the time to actually design it. So I think this is a very, very cool feature. And there is, of course, other things that you can as well.
So another really interesting sort of dynamic thing that you can put on the exchange is in our cartography system, players go out and they survey, and we've talked about this a bit. You go and survey areas, and when you have surveyed an area, you can basically print out a sync chart, which is obviously a name from the lore. Print out a sync chart of the area that you've been surveying, and that basically fills in all the resources and all of the things that you've seen on the map. You can go to the exchange with a printout of your sync charts and sell those sync charts to other players. So it's, for Hackett Basin South, the starting region, the areas are fairly set. But of course the deep desert resets every week. And there are 81 different zones in the deep desert that need to be basically set up in this way. Yeah, surveyed and printed out. So we see this as kind of an activity that we'll see players doing, right? Both, in a guild, you probably have dedicated scouts who go out, survey the deep desert, try to get as much of the resource information as possible, bring it back and hand it out to their guildmates. But in addition to that, we'd also expect there to be independent contractors, people who go out to the deep desert survey and then sell their maps on the exchange. And hopefully you can also get a reputation as being someone who's very thorough, someone who does a good job of the cartography loops of the game. So people start to recognize, okay, this person's a good cartographer. I'm going to buy their maps. They're generally up to date for the week and they're generally in good shape. So hopefully, again, just like the architect, we want that to be a style of play that people can really lean into. It's the same with cartography. We hope that there are scouts and people who lean into this map-making side of the game.
So also, as you just mentioned, Deep Desert is so huge. Even if you're a big guild, you won't have time or the resources to actually really survey everything. And maybe you don't find that spot that has super saturated resources. And then someone actually goes out. It might be a single player that isn't even it might even be a PvE player that might just try to sneak around all the PvP stuff, and they still have the opportunity to kind of make a dent here and be important in the context of everything, especially the deep desert. So I think that's pretty cool. And then we can also talk about the explorer, for example. That's also another thing that there's an opportunity for explorers here as well, of course.
Sure. I mean, yeah, so we have the unique schematic system in the game. We've talked about this as well, where players are able to find unique schematics, but they're limited creation runs. So you can only create the item that you find in the unique schematic one time. So you want to find multiple versions of the schematic in order to save that up and then craft more. So if you go and find a very rare schematic that nobody else has found, you can make a choice. You can either sell the schematic itself on the exchange to another player, which they can then obviously purchase and craft, or you can craft the item yourself and sell that on the exchange. So you also have this choice of how to approach putting things on the exchange, whether you want to be known as the person who crafts this very specific rare thing, or whether you want to be, someone who just sells any interesting schematics you find on the exchange for other people to pick up. And this is something that also allows, the deep desert is a PvP area, and we know that some people never want to go in a PvP area ever, but they'll be able to get the items from the deep desert, hopefully on the exchange, as other players who are willing to go there will sell them as well. So there's hopefully this crossover. And again, going back to the guild layer, we're hoping that, there are some people, I think guilds will have this multifaceted approach where you have your scouts, your architects, your crafters, and your PvPers, right, and PvEers. So people who go out with different tasks and then they come back and they all work together to create the full stack.
Yes.
And I think guild activities is going to be something we talk about very soon.
Yes, we will. But also, just to mention that again, so that's every archetype basically is kind of important in the big picture, which I think is an important point to mention here. Now, obviously, you can't just access the exchange from anywhere, right? I mean...
Yes. Yeah, nice lead in.
I know, I'm trying. That wasn't the best one, though, I admit.
Of course, the exchange is only available in the social hubs.
Yes.
So Harko Village and Arrakis. This is because we want players to deal with a bit of logistics, but we also want players to see other players a
it's
lot,
nice,
right? And the deep desert is a big, lonely place. Until you get,
depending.
Until you get the crap kicked out of you by someone else.
Yes.
But then there's Haggett Basin is a place where you can meet and hang out with people. But the social hubs are really designed to be the place where you see a lot of other players. And the exchange is a location that pulls you in and you'll see. We've all had this feeling in MMOs when you go to the auction house and there's 50 people around, and you can understand that this is actually a world with a lot of people in it.
You also have to go there to pay taxes, though, which is kind of a little bit of a bummer as well. So you can't just spend your money either paying taxes or spend your money buying cool stuff, or make money to pay your taxes. There's the other thing.
Actually, forgot to pay my taxes for 2 weeks in the beta, and I came back to a sad base that I had to repair.
Well,
it's my fault.
Well, that's all on you. That is all on you. Also, if you just had the small sub fee, it wouldn't be an issue in the first place.
And I could have paid the taxes in advance.
It's a little doghouse that we let you out, like Joel's doghouse,
exactly.
like you mentioned. Yeah, exactly.
I've been in it for a week.
Until the next 2 weeks almost. Yes. So, obviously, that was one of the aspects that players can actually kind of take part in the economy. But more importantly, players can also take part in politics. That brings us to the Landsraad system. Before we go into the actual mechanics and what that looks like, Joel, maybe you can give us a little bit of a background of how that actually fits into the Dune lore.
Yeah, the Landsraad is the High Council that deals with the Emperor in the books, right? It's kind of this political body. They have some influence on the policies of the Imperium. It's described as a political tripod with the Emperor and the Landsraad and the Spacing Guild. But in our game, yes, the Landsraad have the ability to create decrees that then impact the entirety of Arrakis and affect the ongoing war. And the way that we've designed this system is that player factions, the Atreides and Harkonnen, are attempting to get votes in the Landsraad so that they can impact the overall structure of this. And so the idea here is just to really create and it is an endgame activity driver is what I call it, right? It's a way of creating a system where people are asked to do activities to help their faction earn votes in the Landsraad. And the Landsraad then has a voting session, and Amar's going to talk a little bit more about how that all works out. The only thing I will say in addition to that is that the Landsraad takes place across like a series of servers. Just like I mentioned, the Exchange does the same thing. So there's one Landsraad for a world. A world contains multiple servers within it. So it isn't just like a few people competing. It's everybody in that world competing and all the factions in that world. And we will have a look at how the reputations and stuff come to play in this.
Yeah, I think we can basically just dive into it and show what it actually looks like game mechanical.
The only piece I find.
A few assets here that we can show you.
Yeah, so the Landsraad week, it's a cycle that lasts a week. And to be eligible to participate, players need to align themselves to a faction and be part of a guild that is aligned to the same faction. And the week starts with players having to go out into the world and find the representatives of the 25 Landsraad houses and basically convince them to reveal their requirement for the week. And these change every week. And as you can see here, the player has found one of these representatives and can try to convince them to reveal their requirement for that week.
So there's several ways to convince them to like reveal their kind of goals to you, and there's also depending on which great house that you're actually talking to, so they change those goals. Yeah, so one thing is of course doing chores for them in a way, like chores, but then you can also, there's also other ways, right, that you can convince them.
You can bribe them, some of them.
Straight out.
Some of them are not bribable. And yeah, that will reveal their requirement for the week, and then players can immediately start completing that.
And some of them, I believe, also react to your background that you chose in character creation. So they might like you more if you're from a certain background or a certain caste in the universe, and therefore they might provide more information freely.
Faster as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you get to that faster. And the reason that you should get to that kind of, you should reveal that fast is kind of something that we're going to show after now, so we can actually kind of switch to that and show the board, kind of the Landsraad board. Here we go. Yes.
Yeah, this is the Landsraad board. How it looks at the start of the week, where you can see there are these 25 great houses shown, but you don't know what they require you to do that week. So once you have revealed the tasks, it will tell you and your whole faction what you need to do to complete it.
And of course, the earlier you do that, the more time you have as well to actually work on those.
And each square on this board represents a major house of the Landsraad, and these are the representatives that you're looking for in the world.
Yeah, and if you don't manage to reveal, over time they will reveal themselves. And as you can see, there are different things they require of you. Some will require you to harvest resources or craft items such as steel suits or rapiers and deliver them. They might ask you to deliver vehicles such as sandbikes, ornithopters. Those are tasks more for the crafters, the PvEers. There's also exploration tasks that ask you to travel out into the world, find crashed shipwrecks, buried treasures that contain specific things that some of the houses will ask for. And there's also the possibility for PvPers to progress these tasks by taking over control points in the deep desert that are basically territory that these houses want in the deep desert.
I think an important point to mention is also that you do actually need to not only be you don't only need to belong to a faction, you also need to actually be in a guild to be able to participate in this.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here we have a few of those. I think we can go now further to actually show what your goal is on this bingo card, so to speak.
Yeah. So as the factions complete tasks, they will show up on the board in their color, and this progresses
I think
throughout the
we
week.
need to go back to the previous board if we can, and perfect, and just leave it there for a sec. Thank you.
Yeah, and this is actually from the beta, and you can see that this week Atreides has absolutely crushed Harkonnen, but you can also see here that Harkonnen has won last week because they have the active decree. But this is where you compete, and towards the end of the week, basically the faction that has the most tasks completed by the end of the week will win. But there's also the possibility of faction winning before that time by completing a row of 5 tasks, which we call a sysselråd.
Yeah, it's a very nerdy term pulled from the books, but a sysselråd is basically when a major voting block in the Landsraad works together, and then they basically, so you can win the week by filling out a line. You can block that by, of course, taking votes away. So you can prevent an early victory in the Landsraad by jumping in and completing tasks in a line to prevent other people from doing it. Yeah, it's supposed to lead to players being tactical in their approach to how they do this, guilds being tactical in how they work together and against each other in this scenario, right?
And in this case, it's also really fun to talk to another guild and like work together to make sure especially when it comes to that specific. Actually, I'm taking that a little bit too early when it comes to decrees afterwards as well. So if you really don't want one, but anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So yeah, so basically it's a row of either diagonally or vertically or horizontally. If you have all those 5, you actually win a sysselråd, and
then it ends early. But if you don't manage the row,
yeah, then it is the most tasks completed. But I think this is quite interesting because it's not just a battle of effort here or anything. It's also the meta battle of blocking off the other
strategy.
faction.
There's kind of tactics and strategy involved as well, and not only PvP. As we heard, there's you can really contribute to this no matter what kind of player you are. If you're a crafter, if you're an explorer, there's something for you to do as well to help your faction or your guild in this case. Also, what's interesting here is you see the placement of the guilds as well, which gets us into rewards. What are some of the rewards that you get from actually participating in this? Yeah,
the main reward that players are fighting over are the decrees. They are significantly powerful and they alter the rules of the game, so to speak. So we have decrees such as access to vendors that provide some of the most powerful items in the game. That includes weapons, armors, tools, vehicles. It can be something as reduced crafting costs for the whole faction for the whole week, or even some more rare ones that are like the one you see on the screen now, where all items are dropped in the deep desert, basically making it a full loot
PvP heaven, basically. Yeah. I think what's important to mention again is that this is actually for a whole world. So you change basically the rules and the mechanics for a whole world and all the servers or sieges that are part of that world. So it's actually quite a big impact you can have on how the game is played for like a whole week.
Yep.
Which is very exciting. But there's more rewards than, we see a few more decrees here as well. And again, it's important to mention that there's not just PvP decrees that you can do. Like if you can be, we actually discussed that earlier, if you can be if you want to be a guild that is all about peace and you really want to kind of stop the PvPers from like doing their thing all the time, you can actively try to block them from, because they want to go for full loot again and stuff like that. So you can actually band together with other guilds and try to kind of counter that in a way, which I think is actually pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the ways you can do that is when when the week ends and the voting session starts, the guild leaders are the ones that can vote on the selection of 3 decrees that week. And they vote with something called voting power that they gain based on how much their members contributed to the tasks. So a PvE guild, as you say, that is very active and contributes a lot, they have more to say on which decree is chosen. than a guild that contributes less.
So it's not only about the factions winning against the other factions, it's also about which guild within that faction has contributed the most.
Exactly.
Because they get more power to decide.
You can see on the screen that on the two sides, you can see the top 5 contributing guilds. So you can sort of also, like as guilds, you can also think about how you want to climb the ranks. So particularly the Harkonnen who like to backstab and take over each other's places.
Hey now.
But like it's you can see the same like with the Atreides. Maybe they're a bit more noble about it, but it's about there's also competitiveness within the guilds, within the factions, as well as this competition between the factions, which is, you know...
You're saying there might be backstabbing in between the factions. I'm saying
there might be plans within plans. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
plans within plans. And that's kind of the idea here, to build this system. And I want to stress that, like, when the game launches, this will be there, but it won't be as fleshed out as it will be over time, right? Because we'll continue to add more activities, more decrees, so that the game will continue to evolve with different things happening, right? Like, and that's kind of the idea. Like, when we add X, that's going to start showing up in the Landsraad as an activity that we want people to do as a part of the Landsraad. And so this is a system that I feel has like an infinite potential to continue expanding as the game expands, and that's kind of our goal as well.
Especially since you don't only have the decree as rewards, there's other things as well, and it's not just the factions that are the winners, even if you lose. But maybe you can comment a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, you have something we call personal rewards that are for each of the houses, and they give everybody who contribute a certain percentage rewards. The rewards can be something like a great amount of Solari, a large amount of endgame components, unique schematics. Again, they're always powerful. And eventually even the house colors of that house as a swatch that you can apply to your own armor. And this is given to players regardless if they win the task or if they don't. And they start at a pretty low percentage, so it should be something that's achievable for many players.
Also on a personal level. Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's one of the decrees actually, because you can actually, I'm not sure if we've shown it on the asset, but you can also unlock a special vendor. Like that's, I think that, is that a decree? I'm actually not 100% sure. It's a decree, yeah.
There's multiple decrees that unlock different vendors, and they have, as I mentioned
those
before,
unique schematics that you mentioned.
They're very strong schematics, and they also have discounted general endgame gear as well. So there's a double reward there in a way.
And we talk gear, we don't mean just armor and weapons. We also mean tools and other things that are
vehicles.
Interesting, yes, for like any kind of player. Yes. I think that was actually a good overview already, and as mentioned, we have the beta weekend coming up. So, no, actually, players won't be able to check out the launch at the weekend. Unfortunately, that's a bit
It takes a bit too long to get here.
This is endgame, right? Like, yes, it's a bit too complex.
You can join a faction. Probably, you can join a faction in the beta.
You can.
I think you'll be able to join a faction and like start doing quests and get a feel for what's it like to be a Harkonnen on the ground, or what's it like to be an Atreides. But you can't reach the Landsraad in the beta scope that we're going to have on May 9th. But that's a part of the surprises. We can't show everything.
No, and it's part of endgame too. Like there's so many other things to do anyway on the way there. Like there's millions of things that you can do for any type of player. But yes, thank you so much, Joel. You're actually going to stay here because you're going to help us with the Q&A.
Nice. This is going to be fun. Ask really spicy questions so that I can give really spicy answers.
Omar, thank you so much for being here. Hopefully we have you on the stream sometime soon. It's really great to have you. Thanks for your for the chat.